Last week we talked about hypnotherapy and how that can help. The wellness therapies generally tend to draw upon an aspect of ourselves that is not just part of the physical or beyond the physical, if you will. So there's often a spiritual aspect to it, even if you're not a particularly religious or spiritual person. Understanding that there are aspects of you that are greater than your physical presence is often a big part in wellness therapies. So, hypnotherapy is part of that. It accesses parts of you that you may not be aware of. And you can think of those things as psychological things, or you can think of them as something more. It doesn't really matter, but what does matter as far as effectiveness is concerned is this understanding that wellness goes beyond just healing symptoms. It goes beyond that, and it's part of a wholeness, looking at your whole mind and body and spirit in a way. The mind does affect how you feel and your health. More and more we find how much stress has to do with creating illness. And stress comes from how you think about things, what you think about, and how you respond to things. So wellness therapies can often help us through those sorts of things. We're going to talk about the placebo effect as a wellness therapy. Now, you may have heard the word placebo before in relationship to drug testing. In other words, you may have heard about tests of drugs where they give one sample group a drug to see how it works, or like an aspirin or something like that, and they give another group a placebo that doesn't have the medicine but is shaped like the medication, and that the group that gets the placebo doesn't know it's a placebo. They think it's the and then they measure the effects, and they do this to find out using the medication. So that's the placebo effect, but it can also be used for actual real healing effectively, and without having to put your body through the process of the chemicals that medications often involve, which can have consequences and side effects. So the strict definition of a placebo is an inert substance, and it's usually like a sugar pill, and it's designed to look like a real drug that doctors sometimes give to satisfy a patient's desire for medicine when there's no need for a genuine prescription. So here doctors can do three things. They have three choices. They can give nothing and run the risk of losing patients, or they can give non-specific medications to make patients feel better, affecting mood, things like amphetamines and tranquilizers, which put the patient at considerable risk for addiction and dependence issues. We're seeing a lot of that with the painkillers and the opiates that have been prescribed by doctors to help patients who are experiencing post-operative pain or different types of pain. And these are highly addictive to the point where we've lost many wonderful, talented people to overdoses of these very powerful drugs. So that's probably an option that's not a very good one. So the third option is a placebo, and it may satisfy a patient without causing any harm. Often patients will report improvement or disappearance of their symptoms after taking the placebo. And sometimes objective signs of disease diminish and complete cures occur. And these results are usually erroneously called placebo effects, but they're actually the response of patients to the placebo and are better called placebo responses. And this all goes back to the idea of, how powerful the mind is and the ability that we have to heal ourselves. Placebos may seem like they're tricking you into believing that, but if it triggers your own ability to heal your own symptoms without using actual medication, I think it can be of some benefit. And some doctors are going to be uncomfortable using placebos because they feel it's deceptive. And they don't feel that they are particularly important, but they do, admit that there are times when patients respond to placebo medications for a variety of reasons. So sometimes, depending on your doctor may not be very comfortable doing that sort of thing, but they can help. Now, apparently, and I'm reading an article here from Dr. Weil on his website, drweil.com, on the placebo effect. The only fully sanctioned use of placebos, he says, is as a standard of comparison in evaluating new drugs, as I was explaining, in double-blind trials where neither the patients nor doctors know who receives the real drugs and who takes the placebos until these studies end and the results are in. The strength of the placebo response can be of any magnitude. It can relieve severe post-operative pain. And I mentioned, by the way, self-hypnosis also being able to relieve pain. And as I say, in these days of these highly addictive pain relievers, this can be a real help. So placebo response can relieve severe post-operative pain. It can induce sleep. It can bring about mental alertness. It can bring about dramatic remissions in symptoms and objective signs of chronic diseases, and initiate the rejection of things like warts and abnormal growths. Placebos can also elicit all the undesirable side effects possible with real drugs, including nausea, headaches, skin rashes, hives, and more serious allergic reactions, organ damage, and addiction. You can actually apparently get addicted to a placebo, or believe that you're addicted to it, because your body is responding to it in that way. In addition, recent research has shown that the placebo effect, or the placebo response, can occur even when patients are completely aware that they're getting the equivalent of a sugar pill. Wow. So think about that. It's not just that they're taking a pill they think is helping them, but it's really just a sugar pill. They know it's a sugar pill. One common placebo treatment that often works very well in sophisticated patients, including medical doctors, is the prescription of antibiotics for sore throats. Many ordinary sore throats are caused by viruses and not bacteria, and antibiotics work only against bacteria. Using antibiotics for viral sore throats is deplorable, costs money, carries medical risks, and worst of all, decreases the future effectiveness of antibiotics by selecting resistant bacteria that spread throughout the population. Nevertheless, while condemning this practice, Dr. Weil admits that it sometimes works. So there's lots of histories of patients with sore throats who experienced rapid cures when using the antibiotic therapy. But with the trouble that we're having with antibiotics, it's probably not a really good idea. There's an article in the Journal of Pediatrics about placebo responses in children who have migraine headaches. And the authors note that compared to around a 35% response rate in adult migraine trials, the positive response can be upward of 50% in children. They also suggest that instead of focusing on eliminating placebo responses in clinical migraine trials, the focus should be redirected toward understanding the underlying mechanism responsible. Right? Because if we can understand why our bodies respond and how we can make them respond, well, this would obviously allow higher response rates, particularly in these children they're talking about, maximize the response, and you can, elicit it more often. So there's still a lot of research to be done to understand how it works, but it seems pretty clear to me that the idea of healing from the mind is a very powerful one. And I think it also goes back into the whole idea that we are creating our experiences, including illness. And I think it goes beyond our minds, because if it was just our minds, when we know we're taking a placebo, it wouldn't work. So it's not just a psychological thing. Something else is going on. That's my take on it anyway. But they'll continue research, but the way that scientific research works, they probably aren't asking the right kinds of questions, at least the kinds of questions that we would want answers to, as to how we're able to do this. So that's the placebo effect. And yes, it's real. And yes, it can be helpful, but it can also be dangerous too. So the next wellness therapy that I want to talk about is called Ayurvedic medicine, the Ayurvedic method of detoxifying the body through an oil massage. It's called Abhyanga. If you're familiar with Ayurvedic medicine, it's a traditional healing system from India, and I think is considered to be the oldest formal medical system in the world. And it takes that whole person approach to healthy living that encompasses mental and spiritual well-being as well as physical health. So this Abhyanga, this oil massage that's supposed to detoxify you, is one type of Ayurvedic massage. And there are various therapists who work on you. And apparently in this type of massage you can have up to 6 therapists working on you at the same time. But most spas, only have 2. And they use a lot of oil. Apparently they use warm mustard seed oil. So it has a very enjoyable feeling. And there are many claims that it relieves fatigue, increases stamina, improves your sleep, enhances the complexion, promotes longevity, nourishes all parts of the body, and it neutralizes some of the effects of aging. So there have been no real medical studies of the health effects of this type of massage. Now, Dr. Weil cites a pilot study from Germany in 2011 that looked at the effect of a single Abhyanga massage on stress in 10 healthy women and 10 healthy men in their mid-30s. And each participant had an hour treatment and showed significant reductions in stress and heart rate, as well as decreased blood pressure